Summer Showdown was a crazy time. It threw the supremacists on their head and let the Chengdi's own dominate. It had very varied results across the board, and I will be taking the opportunity to do a bit of a recap of each team in the Summer Showdown, starting with North America. We'll start with the ugly. Now, their teams took a bit of a beating. I'll start with the obvious one, the Florida Mayhem. The Mayhem took the extremely dumb step for any team by putting a DPS player, one that up to this point had barely seen any play time, and put him on main tank duty. This obviously didn't work out too well, as they didn't win a single game this tourney, and it's looking like they won't win for the rest of the season. Needless to say, this is pretty unacceptable for a team that went to Hawaii back in May, and continue to have one of the top rosters in the league. They were honestly the worst part of this tournament for me in a tourney. They was rough on almost every Western team. Hopefully Ye can stop smoking crack and make some decent decisions for once. The next obvious one is the San Francisco Shock. The roster expected to three-peat at the beginning of the season lost playoff knockout spots to the likes of Paris and Boston. It is pretty embarrassing. I don't think their situation is as dire as Florida, as they still played fairly well, but it is clear that they are much less coordinated and calm. Plus, the abrupt loss of Striker, one of the best players on their team, obviously didn't help either. I honestly think they could make a comeback though. Maybe it's my Shock fan copium, but if they figure out their backline lineup, stop playing so aggressively and have Blister continue to improve on Tracer, I could see them making a serious shot at Hawaii in the Countdown Cup next, Houston Outlaws. This was a pretty hideous look for them. They dominated the Shock, and everyone thought that their slot in the play-ins was a shoo-in. But then, they got completely fucked by Boston and Dallas in quick succession and missed knockouts. Not only is it a bad look for a roster of this caliber, but it really shows how overconfident and cocky they can be, and be caught off guard. I think they were just genuinely unprepared for Boston coming into this, and it clearly cost them. They still have an elite roster, and I still see them making it to the Countdown Cup qualifiers, but they just need to get their shit together pretty much. The final ugly team, I'd say the Vancouver Titans. Their misery streak continues unabated. If you combine their maps from the June Joust and the Summer Showdown, they have won a total of one single map in their past 8 matches. Which is absolutely unacceptable for obvious reasons. If they get 3-0 single quote D twice in a row, they'll beat Shanghai Dragons' Season 1 record of 2 map wins in 10 games. I think there are some good prospects for the team to pick up in the off-season, but they absolutely are not winning a single game this year. What a travesty from their 2019 selves. Next, on to the bad. To start, I'll discuss the London Spitfire. I didn't put them in the ugly section because Spark is still an exciting prospect and did quite well in their first week. However, he was unable to bring them a victory. Their biggest accomplishment was almost beating the Shock while they were struggling. But the reason they are in the bad tier was because they went back to their dogshit selves in the second week they played. I think they are the 3rd best team in the league right now, in front of Florida and Vancouver, but they really can't be called anything but bad. The next bad I would say would be the Toronto Defiant. They've really picked up a star in Aspire. The man is insane, and can solo carry maps. Sado has even looked quite good as of late. However, that is where the praise ends for me. They clearly can't keep up with better teams, and is solidly dominated whenever they have to punch up. They aren't in the worst position, but I don't see them making knockouts or the playoffs. The next bad, and this is a bit of a hot take, but the Dallas Fuel. They haven't looked like their dominant selves. While they continually proved themselves to be the best in there, they went 5 maps against Checkmate main tank, and were unable to adapt to Chengdi after 7 maps of playing them. Chengdi has looked insanely good, don't get it twisted, but you would expect more from one of the favorites to win the championship. I cannot call them bad though. Hanbin really popped off this tourney, and Fearless, Sparkle and Fielder have looked insane as always. Only issue is that the meta seems to be the same, which doesn't bode great for them. Hopefully the losses don't get to them, though. Now on to the good. Los Angeles Gladiators. They still haven't pulled off their meaningful win, but they still did quite good. They beat the Shock, dominated Boston, and played Washington and Atlanta very close. They looked a bit shaky at times, and still can't close out Map 5 single quotes, but overall, I am impressed with them. They do have a rough schedule ahead, but I believe they can make knockouts yet again. Next is the Washington Justice. Again, keeping the pattern of bad first week and amazing second week. I don't know how they go from getting stomped by Atlanta to taking Dallas to 5 maps, but they really played well at the end. Mag and Fury are a top 5 tank duo at the moment, and Decay is still consistently clutch. If they can figure out the meta without being dominated in their first week, they could look very scary moving forward. I think they have a real shot at Hawaii next time around. Next is the Atlanta Reign. They have solidified themselves as the second best North American team in my opinion. Not only have they made it to Hawaii twice, they have also consistently given Dallas a run for their money. They are still horrible at dive, but frankly I think it will be a slower brawlish comp for quite some time, which they excel at. Them and Dallas are definitely the front runners to go to Hawaii in the Countdown Cup, at least in my opinion. Next is the Paris Eternal. They really stepped up their game. They have really come together as a team in the best way possible. Onigod and Naga are insane, Da and Nka and are scary, and Vestola is a star as well. Honestly, they may have beaten Washington in knockouts if they hadn't done that weird swap to Tsana. I can see them going to great heights as they continue improving. The final team and the final good is the Boston Uprising. They went out with a whimper, but boy did they impress. Their dive looked elite against Houston, though Houston was borderline throwing. While they didn't have the hardest schedule, I think most can agree that they seem much improved and that they are very promising prospects for the next tourney, whatever the meta may be. Thanks for watching, and remember to like and subscribe for more. I am trying to hit 100 subscribers by the next season, so any subscription helps greatly. Thanks.